The silenced warning Admiral Javier Cortez stood at the observation deck of the UNSS Pathfinder, Earth's most advanced exploration vessel. His weathered face, marked by decades of service, reflected in the reinforced glass as he stared into the wide depths of space. Behind him, the bridge crew worked in focused silence, monitoring the anomalous readings that had brought them to the edge of the Kuiper Belt. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Olivia Takahashi, her voice cutting through his thoughts. "We've confirmed it. The object is definitely artificial and definitely not one of ours." Cortez nodded, his expression unchanged, though his pulse quickened. After centuries of searching the stars and wondering if humanity was alone, they finally had their answer. But instead of excitement, he felt only unease. "Distance?" he asked. "Approximately 300,000 kilometers in holding position. It appears to be some kind of automated relay or monitoring station." Cortez turned to face his crew. "This stays classified. Level Alpha. Set condition yellow and prepare a secure transmission to Earth Command." As the Pathfinder maintained its distance from the alien object, billions of kilometers away, another conversation was taking place. In the Great Hall of Harmony, the central meeting chamber of the Stellar Consortium, thousands of representatives from over 400 species gathered in ascending rings of ornate seating. At the center of the chamber stood Elder Zefix, the oldest living member of the founding race. His translucent skin revealed the slow pulse of multiple hearts as he addressed the assembly. "The evidence is undeniable," Zefix said, his voice carried through the chamber by harmonic resonators. "The species from the third planet of star system J4721 has discovered one of our boundary markers. They call themselves humans, and they have advanced far more quickly than our models predicted." High Chancellor Oryx rose from his seat, his imposing figure drawing all eyes. Unlike Zefix's frail form, Oryx was the picture of vigor, his metallic exoskeleton gleaming under the chamber's lights. "With respect, Elder," Oryx said, his voice rich with practiced diplomacy, "we have monitored thousands of emerging species. What makes these humans worthy of a full assembly discussion?" Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The consortium had existed for 50,000 years, guiding the evolution of galactic civilization with a firm but distant hand. New species were discovered regularly, observed, and eventually approached for membership, once they had proven themselves worthy. Zefix's eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of frustration in his species. "It is their pattern of development that concerns me. Observe." Above the central platform, a holographic display appeared showing a blue-green world. Data scrolled alongside it, charting the rapid progression of human technology. 200. Of their years ago, they communicated with smoke signals and traveled by animal power. 100 years ago, they split the atom. 50 years ago, they reached their moon. Today, they have begun to harness quantum mechanics and are developing faster-than-light theories that, while primitive, show remarkable intuition. Minister Thalara of the Commerce Guild leaned forward. "Many species develop quickly, Elder. The Vexari went from stone tools to space travel in just 3 generations. The Vexari were guided by us," Zefix countered. "Humans have done this alone, in isolation, driven by something I've seen only once before." The chamber grew silent. No one needed to ask what Zefix referred to. The Devourer Wars remained the darkest chapter in consortium history, when another rapidly advancing species had nearly destroyed galactic civilization before being contained. High Chancellor Oryx's posture shifted subtly. "What would you have us do, Elder? Destroy them before they can threaten us? That is not our way." "No," Zefix said firmly. "I recommend immediate diplomatic contact. Show them the power and benevolence of the consortium while they are still impressionable. Set boundaries now while we still can." Oryx smiled, revealing teeth filed to perfect points, an ancient tradition of his species. "Your concern is noted, Elder. We will monitor these humans more closely and consider diplomatic options when appropriate." But Zefix could see the matter was already decided. The consortium, in its ancient wisdom, had grown arrogant. They would observe and debate until it was too late. Dr. Nalini Patel hunched over her workstation in the secure facility beneath the Himalayan mountains. For 6 months, she had led the international team tasked with decoding the transmissions from what they now knew was an alien monitoring station. "Any progress?" asked General Wei Feng, the military liaison to the project. Patel rubbed her tired eyes. "Some. The signal contains mathematical sequences that seem universal, prime numbers, physical constants. But there's more. Embedded patterns. That might be language." Wei nodded, his expression grave. "And the other matter? You mean the fact that since we discovered their device, 5 more have appeared at the edges of our solar system?" Patel's laugh was brittle. "Yes, I've noticed. They're watching us, General. The question is why." Before Wei could respond, AI Sire, junior analyst, burst into the room. "Doctor, the primary device is transmitting again, but on a new frequency. And it's massive." Patel rushed to the main console, fingers flying across the interface. "It's not just transmitting," she whispered, as the data resolved. "It's receiving. Something's responding." 6 months later, the Great Hall of Harmony was in an uproar. The carefully ordered proceedings had dissolved into chaotic debate as representatives shouted over one another. At the center, Elder Zefix stood silently, watching as his warnings manifested. High Chancellor Oryx finally restored order, his amplified voice drowning out all others. "Enough. The situation is concerning but not catastrophic. Yes, the humans disabled 2 of our monitoring stations. Yes, they have apparently decoded some of our basic communications protocols. But they remain confined to their solar system, primitive by our standards. They should never have been able to detect our technology, let alone disable it," countered Minister Thalara. The elder was right. They are advancing too quickly. Oryx's expression hardened. The consortium has faced greater challenges in its history than a single species of curious primates. I have authorized a containment operation. A diplomatic envoy will make contact, explaining our protocols and the conditions for eventual consideration of membership. Zefix stepped forward. "You misunderstand them, Chancellor. Humans do not respond well to limitations imposed by those they have not agreed to respect. Study their history. Their greatest advancements come when they are challenged or threatened." "Are you suggesting we should fear them?" Oryx asked, incredulity dripping from every word. "I am suggesting we should respect them," Zefix replied. "Approach as equals seeking cooperation, not superiors dictating terms." Oryx stared at the elder for a long moment before turning to address the assembly. "The diplomatic mission will proceed as planned. This matter will be resolved quickly and efficiently, as all matters have been under my guidance." The diplomatic mission was a disaster. When the consortium's massive vessel appeared in Earth orbit without warning, humanity's fragile unity shattered. Some nations launched missiles, others pleaded for peace. Religious groups proclaimed the end times, and stock markets collapsed. The consortium diplomats, led by Envoy Kahl, were bewildered by the chaotic response. They had expected awe, gratitude, for their attention, perhaps even worship. Instead, they faced suspicion, fear, and in some quarters, outright hostility. Attempting to follow protocol, Envoy Kahl addressed the United Nations, explaining the consortium's role as galactic shepherds and humanity's place as a promising but undeveloped species. They outlined the containment protocols: no further expansion beyond the solar system, limited technological development in certain fields, and submission of all major scientific advances for consortium approval before implementation. In exchange, humans would receive carefully selected technological insights and eventual consideration for associate membership in the consortium in perhaps a few thousand years. The response was unanimous rejection. Admiral Cortez, now heading Earth's Unified Defense Command, met with Envoy Kahl privately following the UN disaster. "Your terms are unacceptable," Cortez stated flatly. "Humanity will not be contained or controlled." Kahl's translator converted his melodic speech into English. "You misunderstand. This is not negotiable. The consortium has maintained galactic peace for 50 millennia through these protocols. Then you misunderstand us. Cortez replied. Humanity has never accepted arbitrary limitations. We will reach for the stars with or without your blessing. That would be unfortunate, Kal said. Resistance has historically ended poorly for emerging species. As the diplomatic impasse deepened, Dr. Patel made a breakthrough. Analyzing the consortium vessel's communication patterns, she discovered vulnerabilities in their supposedly advanced systems. Oversights born of technological stagnation and complacency. Within weeks, humanity launched its response, not with weapons but with something the consortium had never anticipated, a fleet of small, fast ships equipped with communication technology, reverse-engineered from the monitoring stations. These ships slipped past the consortium blockade and scattered to nearby star systems, broadcasting uncensored information about Earth, humanity, and the consortium's attempted subjugation. In the Great Hall of Harmony, Elder Zephix made one final plea. You have misjudged them, he told the assembled representatives. They will not bow to intimidation. Even now, they are finding ways around our blockade, spreading their ideas to worlds that have grown complacent under our rule. High Chancellor Oryx had heard enough. Your continuing defense of these primitives borders on treason, Elder. The Council has voted. Humanity will be contained by force if necessary. With a gesture, Oryx signaled his personal guard. Elder, Zephix is relieved of his duties and will retire to meditative seclusion until this crisis has passed. As Zephix was escorted from the chamber, the voices of moderation and wisdom went with him. The consortium, in its ancient arrogance, had silenced the elders who understood the true threat. Not humanity's weapons, but their ideas, their adaptability, and their unrelenting determination to forge their own path among the stars. The stage was set for conflict. Humanity would not be silenced, and their answer would shake the foundations of the galaxy. Humanity's answer, Admiral Javier Cortez surveyed the holographic display in the war room beneath Geneva. Representatives from Earth's 20 most powerful nations stood in tense silence. As the simulation played out, the consortium's overwhelming fleet strength against humanity's hastily assembled defenses. This isn't a war we can win conventionally, Cortez stated, his voice echoing in the cavernous chamber. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. Their fleet outnumbers ours 1,000 to 1. Then we surrender? Asked Premier Katsumoto. Of the Pacific Alliance, her voice sharp with disapproval. No, Cortez replied, a thin smile crossing his face. We change the rules of engagement. He nodded to Dr. Nalini Patel, who stepped forward. In the 6 months since the failed diplomatic mission, she had aged visibly. Dark circles underlined her eyes, and silver streaks now ran through her once black hair, the cost of sleepless nights and relentless work. The consortium isn't as advanced as they want us to believe, Patel explained, manipulating the display to show detailed schematics. Their technology hasn't fundamentally changed in over 1,000 years. They've refined it, yes, but innovation? True innovation? That stopped long ago. The display shifted to show one of the consortium's massive warships. Their vessels are designed to fight other consortium vessels. Predictable, standardized combat. Their communication systems are vulnerable to quantum interference. Their sensors can't detect our new metamaterial hulls. Most importantly, she paused, looking each leader in the eye. They have no concept of guerrilla warfare. President Diallo of the African Federation leaned forward. You're proposing we fight an asymmetric war against a galactic superpower? I'm proposing we fight the only kind of war we can win, Cortez answered. Operation Wildfire begins tomorrow. High Chancellor Oryx stood on the command deck of the consortium flagship Eternal Dominion, watching as the armada assembled. 500 capital ships, each larger than humanity's largest space station, plus thousands of support vessels, the largest military force the consortium had deployed in 10,000 years. The humans continue to defy containment protocols, reported Admiral Vex, Oryx's military commander. Their information vessels have now reached 12 systems. 3 minor member worlds have reported unusual civil unrest following human broadcasts. Oryx's exoskeleton clicked as he turned. The humans are more resourceful than anticipated. We should have heeded Zephix's warnings about their adaptability. The elder remains in seclusion, Vex noted carefully. Many council members have requested his return to advise on the human situation. The time for talk is past, Oryx declared. These humans must learn their place in the natural order. Their defiance threatens the stability of everything we've built. And if they still refuse to submit, Oryx's eyes narrowed. Then Earth becomes an example to any who would challenge consortium authority. Dr. Patel stood in the command center of Lunar Base Armstrong, surrounded by screens displaying incoming data from across the solar system. The consortium fleet had arrived, spreading out to encircle Earth in a display of overwhelming force. There, broadcasting on all frequencies, reported Communications Officer Jackson, demanding immediate surrender and compliance with containment protocols. Patel nodded. As expected. Are our countermeasures in place? Yes, Doctor. All Earth defense. Platforms are equipped with the quantum disruptors. The stealth fleet is in position. The infiltration units have been deployed to their vessels. She took a deep breath. Everything they had worked for came down to this moment. Initiate Operation Wildfire, Phase 1. Across the solar system, humanity's response began. But not with a frontal assault, with silence. Every human transmitter went dead simultaneously. Every power signature dimmed. To consortium sensors, it appeared as if humanity had suddenly gone dark. Admiral Vex stared at his tactical display in confusion. They've shut down their systems, all of them. Surrender? Asked Oryx, stepping closer. No communication at all, just silence. Oryx's expression darkened. A trick. Scan for hidden energy signatures. Deploy scout vessels to investigate. As the orders went out, neither noticed the small drone-like objects attaching themselves to the hulls of consortium vessels. Each no larger than a human hand, they bypassed the outdated security systems and interfaced directly with the ship's communication networks. The Battle of Europa marked humanity's first direct engagement with consortium forces, when a consortium battle group approached Jupiter's moon to investigate a mysterious energy signature. They found what appeared to be a small, vulnerable human outpost. The commanding officer, following standard protocol, deployed a measured response, force, 20 mid-sized cruisers against what seemed like an insignificant target. It was a trap. Hidden beneath Europa's icy surface, a network of quantum disruptors activated. The consortium vessels, suddenly blind and unable to communicate with each other, were easy prey for the small, agile human ships that emerged from concealment. Using prototype fusion drives reverse-engineered from consortium technology, these vessels struck with devastating precision. Within hours, 17 consortium cruisers had been disabled. The remaining 3 fled, carrying news of a defeat that should have been impossible. Unacceptable! Oryx raged, smashing a display terminal with a powerful blow. How could 20 of our vessels fall to primitive humans? Admiral Vex stood at attention, his posture rigid. The humans used tactics we've never encountered. They targeted our communication systems first, then our engines. They didn't attempt to destroy the vessels, only disable them. And the crews? Evacuated in escape pods. The humans recovered them. Vex hesitated before adding, "They're treating our wounded and have offered to return all personnel under a flag of truce." Oryx paced the command deck. "They're making us look weak. This cannot stand." "There's more," Vex said reluctantly. "We're receiving unusual communications from several member worlds, Dollary, Prime, Vexari, and 3 systems in the outer territories. They're questioning our handling of the human situation." Oryx froze. "Questioning? The consortium is not questioned." The humans have been broadcasting their perspective throughout these systems. Stories of their history, their art, their philosophy of self-determination. It's resonating with certain populations, particularly on worlds that joined the consortium more recently. Sedition. Oryx hissed. Deployed as a weapon. These humans are more dangerous than we thought. Across consortium space, something unprecedented was occurring. On worlds where the consortium's rule had been unquestioned for millennia, people began to ask questions. The arrival of human broadcasts, music, art, literature, and ideas about freedom and self-governance sparked a curiosity that had long been suppressed. On Dolari Prime, youth gathered in secret to listen to human music and discuss human philosophy. On Vexari, scientists began unauthorized research inspired by human theoretical models. In the markets of Jural, merchants whispered about human trade practices that operated without consortium oversight. Ideas spread like wildfire, impossible to contain. In his seclusion chamber, Elder Zephix received a visitor, Director Thalara, once Minister of Commerce, now leader of a growing faction within the consortium that questioned Oryx's handling of the human situation. The situation deteriorates, Thalara reported after the formal greetings. Oryx has committed half the fleet to Earth's system, yet the humans continue to evade direct confrontation while spreading their influence. Zephix's ancient eyes regarded her thoughtfully. And you have come seeking guidance? Or validation for what you have already decided? Thalara straightened. 20 worlds now openly question consortium protocols. They call for dialogue with Earth, not confrontation. Oryx dismisses them as insignificant. Nothing is insignificant when change begins, Zephix replied. What these 20 worlds express openly, 100 more consider privately. The humans have been broadcasting their perspective throughout these systems, stories of their history, their art, their philosophy of self-determination. It's resonating with certain populations, particularly on worlds that joined the consortium. More recently, sedition, Oryx hissed, deployed as a weapon. These humans are more dangerous than we thought. Across consortium space, something unprecedented was occurring. On worlds where the consortium's rule had been unquestioned for millennia, people began to ask questions. The arrival of human broadcasts, music, art, literature, and ideas about freedom and self-governance sparked a curiosity that had long been suppressed. On Dolari Prime, youth gathered in secret to listen to human music and discuss human philosophy. On Vexari, scientists began unauthorized research inspired by human theoretical models. In the markets of Jural, merchants whispered about human trade practices that operated without consortium oversight. Ideas spread like wildfire, impossible to contain. In his seclusion chamber, Elder Zephix received a visitor, Director Thalara, once Minister of Commerce, now leader of a growing faction within the consortium that questioned Oryx's handling of the human situation. The situation deteriorates, Thalara reported after the formal greetings. Oryx has committed half the fleet to Earth's system, yet the humans continue to evade direct confrontation while spreading their influence. Zephix's ancient eyes regarded her thoughtfully. And you have come seeking guidance or validation for what you have already decided? Thalara straightened. 20 worlds now openly question consortium protocols. They call for dialogue with Earth, not confrontation. Oryx dismisses them as insignificant. Nothing is insignificant when change begins, Zephix replied. What these 20 worlds express openly, 100 more consider privately. The humans have exposed vulnerabilities in our system that have existed for millennia, Thalara said. Their broadcasts ask questions many have been afraid to ask. Their technology innovates where ours has stagnated. Zephix rose from his meditation posture. The consortium was founded to guide, not to rule. Somewhere across the millennia, we forgot the difference. Will you return to the council? Your voice could prevent catastrophe. My voice was ignored when prevention was possible, Zephix said sadly. Now, we must allow events to unfold as they will. Admiral Cortez stood on the deck of the UNSS Defiance, Earth's first true battleship. Around him, a fleet of 300 vessels prepared for humanity's most audacious move yet. All ships report ready, Admiral, Lieutenant Takahashi reported. Cortez nodded. Begin the jump sequence. In the months since the conflict began, Dr. Patel's team had achieved what the consortium thought impossible, a working, faster-than-light drive based on principles the aliens had overlooked. It wasn't as refined as consortium technology, but it gave humanity the one advantage they needed: surprise. The human fleet vanished from Earth's orbit in flashes of blue light. When they reappeared, they were not at some distant battlefield. but at the heart of consortium space, orbiting the Mao, capital world itself. Alarms blared throughout the Great Hall of Harmony as representatives scrambled to understand what was happening. On the main display, 300 human vessels held position around the planet, making no aggressive moves but presenting an unmistakable message. Your home is as vulnerable as ours. High Chancellor Oryx stormed into the emergency session, his personal guard flanking him. How did they penetrate our defenses? Where is our fleet? Admiral Vex's holographic projection flickered. The fleet remains in Earth's system, Chancellor. The humans somehow developed jump capability we didn't detect. They're broadcasting on all frequencies requesting parliamentary asylum. What nonsense is this? Oryx demanded. The main screen changed to show Admiral Cortez standing on his bridge. Behind him stood representatives from 20 consortium worlds, members of the growing reform movement. High Chancellor, Cortez began, his voice calm and measured. We come with representatives of sovereign consortium worlds who have asked for our assistance in presenting their grievances. They have invoked the ancient right of parliamentary asylum, guaranteed in your founding charter, but not granted in over 15,000 years. Before Oryx could respond, the chamber doors opened. Elder Zephix entered, followed by Director Thalara and representatives from dozens of worlds. The right is recognized, Zephix announced, his voice stronger than it had been in years. By our oldest laws, these representatives and their human allies must be heard. This is treason, Oryx shouted. The humans manipulate you using our laws against us. No, Zephix replied. They remind us of laws we chose to forget, principles we abandoned for convenience and control. The chamber erupted in chaos as representatives argued, some supporting Zephix, others loyal to Oryx. But beneath the noise, a fundamental shift had occurred. The consortium, which had not faced serious internal challenge in millennia, was dividing. 3 days later, in an unprecedented emergency session of the full consortium assembly, High Chancellor Oryx faced a vote of no confidence. The human fleet remained in orbit, not as conquerors but as witnesses to history unfolding. On the speaker's platform, Elder Zephix addressed the assembly. For 50,000 years, the consortium has guided galactic civilization. We have prevented wars, shared knowledge, and preserved stability. These are not small achievements. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. But stability without growth leads to stagnation. Control without consent leads to resentment. In our arrogance, we silenced voices that challenged our assumptions. First, within our own ranks, then from new species like humanity. Zephix gestured to where Admiral Cortez and Dr. Patel sat among the Earth delegation. These humans, in less than a year, have done what no force in 50 millennia could do. They have made us question ourselves, not through superior weaponry or conquest, but through ideas, through innovation, through their stubborn refusal to accept limitations they had no part in creating. He turned to face Oryx directly. Our future lies not in containing such species, but in learning from them. Not in dictating terms, but in finding common ground. Not in preserving our power, but in sharing it. The vote was not unanimous, but it was decisive. Oryx was removed from power. In his place, a transitional council was formed, led by Thalara, with Elder Zephix as senior advisor and, for the first time, representatives from Earth. 6 months later, Admiral Cortez and Dr. Patel stood in the newly renovated Hall of Cooperation, formerly the Hall of Harmony. Around them, delegates from Earth mingled with representatives from hundreds of consortium worlds, exchanging ideas, sharing technologies, and forging new alliances. Did you ever think it would end this way? Patel asked, watching as human musicians performed alongside alien artists in a cultural exchange. Cortez shook his head. I expected us to fight until one side destroyed the other. I never imagined that we'd answer their arrogance not with destruction but with connection, Patel finished. Elder Zephix approached, moving more slowly now but with clear purpose. Your species continues to surprise us, Admiral. Our historians predicted decades of conflict. Instead, you chose the more difficult path of reconciliation. We learned something from you as well, Elder, Cortez replied. Power isn't just about strength of arms. Sometimes the most revolutionary act is to insist on being heard. Zephix's multiple eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of amusement they had learned. The galaxy is changing faster than it has in 50,000 years. Many find this frightening. Change always is, Patel said. But stagnation is more dangerous in the long run. A lesson we nearly learned too late, Zephix acknowledged. The consortium silenced its elders, ignored their warnings, and prepared for war. Humanity answered not just with resistance, but with ideas that could not be contained. As they spoke, news arrived from distant outposts, signs of activity from beyond the galaxy's edge. Something ancient was stirring in the darkness between stars, something that would test this new alliance in ways none could imagine. But that was a challenge for tomorrow. Today, former enemies took their first steps as allies, united not by force but by choice, not by fear but by possibility. The arrogance that had silenced wisdom had given way to a humility that welcomed it. And humanity's answer to attempted subjugation had become not the destruction of an enemy, but the transformation of a galaxy.